Good day, and welcome to episode 55 of the Aaron Wayne podcast. Ooh, I love that I play the music in the intro now while I can hear it. Usually I would just put this in for like the first 45, 50 episodes. I put it in when editing, but I like just being able to start in on it, feel the tunes. Feels like I'm coming into the vibe. I already recorded like 10 minutes of a podcast and decided to cut all of it. I was just rambling, which I think is why anybody listens to this podcast, is because I sort of ramble. But yeah, man, I'm in my new office space, which, if you have listened to the podcast before, is also next to the dryer. So that's not running right now, but my wife is upstairs. She's kind of kicking it, getting after some stuff. We went to the baby doctor today. She's entering her third trimester, and she had to drink this. They do a glucose test, which, you know, don't get me started in the medical establishment. No, we ended up switching doctors about, I don't know, a month or so into the pregnancy, just because we didn't feel like super comfortable with who we were with before, for a couple of reasons I'm not going to discuss, but we really like the people that we're working with now. It's a midwife group that has OBs on staff too, so there's like a rotating cast of midwives and OBs that we've been meeting with over the last 5 months or so, and we really like them. So but the blood glucose test, apparently women have a tendency to get what's called gestational diabetes, which to most people, they probably are familiar with that. You might not be. And, you know, the diabetes in the modern world is typically from diet and lifestyle choices. And so with each different professional we've met, I've asked, like, hey, what are the things that we can do? Like, you know, Katie's, my wife, stays pretty active. She eats pretty clean. We try to place emphasis on our health. What are the odds that she's going to end up getting this gestational diabetes? And they're like, well, it's kind of random. And I was like, okay, cool. So what's the intervention if you get gestational diabetes? And they said, oh, well, we'll alter your diet and lifestyle. I'm like, okay, so whatever. I don't know. Maybe I do some research on that and figure it out. But we're supposed to get that blood glucose test back tomorrow. And she did not like, it's like this little half pint water bottle with 2x your daily allotment of sugar that you're supposed to be consuming throughout a whole day. And she had it relatively fasted. I think she had like some light breakfast, but pretty fasted. So she was miserable. I got back from teaching yoga this morning, and she had just downed it. She had to down it in 5 minutes. She had her little Apple, her iPhone timer on, and she made it like, she had to do it in 5 minutes, and she drank it in like 4 minutes and 19 seconds. She like took it, but it was like 8 ounces. If it were me, I would have glugged that bad boy back. But yeah, apparently it's super gross. But I don't know, man. I wanted to do a podcast for today because I had a little extra time. I don't necessarily have it like in my schedule right now. I've been focusing on dialing in my scheduling, especially considering that the baby is coming in October. And so what that has me thinking about, a lot of different things, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of being a father. Also wanted to like test out this new studio space in the basement. It's my office and my workshop and the laundry room and baby storage and yard sale stuff that we're supposed to be selling. So I think I'm going to make like a proper investment in creating a space in one of the corners of this room, this big because the basement is full basement. It's unfinished. And I want to make like a proper studio style space for podcasting and for yoga videos and things like that, because I've been thinking, you know, with the baby coming in October, I'm not going to be able to do as much teaching yoga out in the world. But, you know, yoga, I'm a public school teacher, and yoga is supplementing my income by like, she just turned the TV on. If you can hear the TV, you're just going to hear the TV. Because I'm in my basement, and I don't have this soundproofed yet. So, what was I talking about? Yeah, I'm not going to be able to, like, leave the house as much, especially in the first year of having our baby. So I wanted to, I'm working to find different ways to supplement the revenue and build different revenue streams to keep doing yoga, using that skill set and kind of spreading out the practice to as many people as I want to. So I think I'm going to need to make an investment, a proper business investment into some sort of studio space. So stay tuned for that. I'm thinking shiplap, you know, like I'm a white girl in Texas that wears a furry hat. Not a furry hat. You know what I'm talking about? Not those not furry, like something you'd see at a disco or a rave or something, but like furry, like felt. You know what I mean? A felt hat. I'm going to be a white girl from Texas. Austin, Texas. Tejas. Dude, I feel like Austin, Texas is just like spread. It's like there's a culture that is very Austin that has just permeated the culture all the way to the east and west coast. It's just everybody's, you know, aviator sunglasses and fuzzy flat hats. Fuzzy flat hats. It's going to be the name of this podcast episode. Get to the point, Rico. I wanted to talk about having a kid because I just had a phone conversation about 2 or 3 days ago with a really good friend of mine, and he and his wife just had their first baby. I think I might have alluded to that in the last podcast I recorded. Last podcast I recorded was like in my van, like needing to get back in the groove of doing it, and I think like I got 20 minutes in, and Katie got out of her physical therapy appointment for like prepping for pregnancy, and she was like, "Do you have the health insurance card?" So I wanted to sit down today before going to teach yoga this evening and do like a proper thought on being a dad. And so this conversation I had with my buddy, it's so interesting to see him. He's like sending me pictures of his boy, and he's not that type of guy. You know what I mean? Like he definitely has an emotional side, but he's not like a take pictures of baby and to send them kind of guy. And so what I'm seeing is sort of a softness coming from my friend, and I think it's beautiful. And I started to think about like how I think about what the next year of my life is going to be with Katie and our baby girl. So it's going to be a girl. I don't know if I said that in this episode or not, but she's due mid-October, October 13th. And, you know, the nursery's done. We've picked a name out. We're stoked. We have been talking a lot about, like, how we want to go about it, you know? We read this book. I don't think I have it down here. No, it's up. It's by my bedside. A book called Free Range Kids by Lenore Skenazy, which was recommended by Jonathan Haidt, the guy who wrote The Coddling of the American Mind. And you know, we're trying to take these ideas of what it means to be a parent that doesn't do too much parenting, because, you know, as a middle school teacher, I've seen the whole spectrum of kids that have been empowered to take risks and get after it and have a sense of confidence because they know that they can try things and fail and then learn from it, because that's what childhood should be about, is learning. I've had kids who are neglected, and, you know, they do or don't develop skill sets of independence because of that. And not neglected always in like a nefarious sort of I'm a bad parent kind of way, but in sometimes it's just like I'm busy. Like, you know, mom and dad are working 2 jobs, and that's just kind of how it is for a lot of people. And then I've seen the other, sorry I keep clearing my throat. I just built a cabinet for our kitchen, and I was sanding it yesterday, and I didn't wear a mask, which I just, you know, so long wearing masks, I can't find any masks. And when you sand, especially if you're doing a lot of it, it's like all that dust gets in the air. So it's just been in my throat and my nose. I'll try not to cough in the mic, but maybe I cough in the mic, bro. You know, you're listening to it. This is my podcast, not your podcast. Don't tell me how to cough and not cough. Been drinking ice water lately. sometimes you forget you can put ice in your water and you're just drinking tap. People that don't drink tap water, I think they're slightly deranged. Like, yeah, if you got a filter, right? You got a filter and it's in the fridge. It's cool. It's filtered, a little bit extra, whatever. It's nice. But if you won't drink water until it's gone through a filter, there are people in other countries that like drink mud. I mean, people drink mud, So, and we just like the only time Americans use tap is to like for their toilet and for showering, and I think that's weird. But whatever. What the hell was I talking about? Yeah, the type of parents we want to be. I've seen the whole spectrum, right? To kids that have been overparented and they don't know, they haven't been permitted to like fail, and the prospect of failure, especially when you get into middle school, at the end of middle school, going into high school, it's like, oh my God, if I don't get 95% or higher in my honors English class, then I'm going to not go to Yale and no one will ever love me, right? And so I don't want to do that. I don't want to be too good of a parent, if that makes sense. Like, I think that there's a principle in elderly care that you shouldn't do anything for your patients that they can do for themselves, because otherwise they start to lose their sense of agency and their capacity. So, helping if you're, and I don't work in elderly care, but I've heard this talked about from people in that field. Like, if someone's trying to stand up, you give them the supports that they need to do so, but you don't just pick them up and put them on their feet, because then they lose the ability to do so, and they lose the sense of like, I can get myself up out of a chair. And I think that parenting is like that, which is, it might take my daughter when she's, how old are kids when they start tying their shoes? Dude, there are so many things that I don't know about early childhood development. Katie's really good at that. She really knows it, because she worked at a daycare for a couple of years and then has been a primary school teacher for for 10 years. This is her 10th year as a primary school teacher. And so, she really has this stuff dialed in. So I'm going to be leaning on her knowledge a great deal for the first, 5 to 10 years of our daughter's life. But, tying a kid's shoes for them every time never gives them the ability to tie. And I can dude, do you have any idea how fast I can tie shoes? I don't even have to look at them. I don't even have to look at my shoes. Right? I'm like a pianist. I'm like Chopin. I don't even look at the keys. I'm just tying the shoes. You could blindfold me and muffle my ears, and I could still tie my shoes. But a kid can't do that. So you got to let them kind of struggle with it a little bit. Those are some of the thoughts that I've been having lately, is how can I create a space where my kid feels confident that she can figure out how to do things in the world. And I think, people would ask me, like, do you want a boy or do you want a girl? And I honestly didn't and don't care. I always liked the idea of, if Katie and I were to have a boy, and I don't know, we might have more than one kid. Right now we're just kind of trying to work with the one we have. But, if we were to have a boy, my thought was, well, I have sort of piecemealed together for myself in my mid-20s to now, maybe early 20s to now, like, what is manhood? Because as a high school football player, you get taught a very specific type of manhood and what masculinity is and how that manifests in the world. And I think for some people it's really beneficial, and it was beneficial for me in some ways, but it did give me a sort of sense of like manhood is dominance, because that's what football is about. It's like you hurt people. That's the intention of the practice of the games. Is just like, you get, we'd watch film on Mondays after a game under those Friday night lights. Ooh. Watch game film, baby. Come on. I'd watch game film right now. You got some? I have a friend of mine who still has some game film, and he was much better than me, and one of the best players in the district, small district in Northern Virginia. And he put film. We went to his house, and he like had the film, and I was like, yo, throw that on. And then I saw a video of myself moving, and I was like, that guy doesn't look like he's safe playing the positions he's playing. I look like a spider, like, you ever seen a spider like really run, like, sorry for those people out there with arachnophobia. That's what I look like. I look like a spider scampering across the field, and I always looked confused, but that's the type of manhood. But that, like, the people I looked up to in that space were people who were physically strong and big and dominant, and I attempted to manifest those character traits in myself. I got into fights unnecessarily off the field, like in school, and at parties after school, on the weekends and stuff. And that isn't who I feel that I am. And so that was like my first dabbling in masculinity. And so, then I get out into the world, and I work in two female-dominated industries. I work as a public school teacher, and I work as a yoga instructor. So most of the interactions I have with adults in my day-to-day life and my professional life are women. And so what that's given me is a sense of, sort of balancing those traits that can be hyper-masculine. And like, obviously, like, people have different doses of masculine and feminine traits regardless of their gender. But I liked the idea of, if we were to have a boy, helping him to understand the more feminine traits that are naturally inside of him, not to like confuse the kid about like how he expresses himself, but giving him a sense that manhood and masculinity is good. Like, there are good things about masculinity, and then there are also good things about the things that are more feminine traits. And so I think the blending of those for any gendered individual are like, that's power. Like, that's truly powerful. And so, having a girl, what I want to do is I want to help her understand that things that are considered to be, more masculine, like disagreeableness and, physical strength. And again, this is not a judgment or saying like these things, don't take this out of context. You understand what I'm trying to say. I like the idea of like helping to foster, an intrepid, like badass girl, I love that. And who knows, like, this is my first kid. Who knows to what extent that I have the capacity to mold her in any way. Like, I was talking to one of my yogis about 2 or 3 weeks ago. She was having some issues, and I think that she was sort of talking to me for 2 reasons. I think sometimes, you just need someone to talk to that's not invested in the situation. And I think she was sort of like looking for advice, and I try not to give advice, because I don't think it works. But the thing that I did say to her was, I've been teaching for like a decade, and before that I was, trying to tell people everything I've learned. And what I really truly believe, being a professional teacher of adults and kids, is that you can't really teach anybody anything. Like, you can't force something into someone's head. So whether that's a kid or an adult, you can't really tell them what to do, because people don't want to be told what to do. They might receive information that you give them, but you can't teach anybody anything. And I believe that. So yeah, man, that's cool. I don't know what else do I want to say about having a kid, man. So it comes to me in waves, and I think that this is a uniquely I think this is unique to fathers, having talked to mothers in my life, because, when you're a mom, I look, Katie was just trying on some dresses that she bought for baby showers that we're going to have, and she was, holding the dress so it like accentuates her baby bump, and like our daughter is with her all day, every day for the last 6 months or so. And so I think that for women, there's this like gradual ramping up of like, oh, my daughter is with me. My daughter is with me. And I think that that's beautiful. And that's like it must be like a real gift from the female experience. But as a father, like, you don't notice it as much. Like it's not in my face. And so I have these little flashes of like, you're going to be a dad. And I'm like, oh, like it freaks me. And like, it does freak me out a little bit, but it's like it's this huge thing. And I don't feel fear. I do feel a sense of uncertainty. And for some that might feel like fear. And maybe for me, sometimes it feels like fear, but I don't remember having that sensation. What I think about is how quickly time goes. We were coming back from the doctor today, and she is at 27 or 28 weeks. And we were talking about induction because that was just like a conversation that we were having. And dude, the OB we had today, again, back to like masculine and feminine traits, like he was very like he was very much a dude about this. He was like, talking about, it's just men have this like boxy sort of like lines, shapes, order, you know what I mean? It's like that's how, in my experience, people who manifest masculine traits, this tends to be how they are. And he had a beautiful softness to him that was inviting. But when talking about like outcomes and so forth, he was very like, these are the facts. This is what it is. That's what this is. So I asked him the question. I was like, why would you ever induce? Like, what are the pros and cons? Like, doesn't it make sense to just like, if she wants to cook for another week or two? And then he like did this thing, like he made an X and Y axis with his forearms, and he like drew a graph in the air for me about infant mortality, and how at week 39 the mortality odds stop their descent. And so just seeing that, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Like that's why they induce it like 39-40 weeks if things aren't moving along. And so so we were coming back from the doctor and looking at 10 weeks from now, roughly speaking, we're going to get to meet our daughter. And in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, well, that's like half a semester. That's a 9 weeks. In school, we say the first 9 weeks, second 9 weeks, third 9 weeks, fourth 9 weeks, which is half a semester. And I thought, like with my kids, it's like a novel or maybe 2 novels, with my students. And it sort of like hit me again in one of these like waves of, it's going to feel like tomorrow real soon. And what that's telling me is that I got to keep with my practices of present moment awareness, because next thing you know, my daughter will be 4. That's just so far out, man. I'm excited to meet her. And I hope that, what do I hope? I hope that she can live a life that allows her to find peace. Because I see so many people who really struggle with, and myself included, like the last couple of days I've just had these in the evenings, really low, and it comes and goes with me. I just randomly get low for no reason, and I have my tools. I have the things. I know when I'm low how to find peace with myself and to accept, like, this is a thing that's here now and it won't be here forever. And when I think about raising kids, I just want them to have a toolkit that's authentic to them so that she can find peace, So, yeah. What else have I been doing? So, thinking about being a dad, I've been saying that. So, people have been, Katie is right at the perfect healthy weight for her and for baby, and our diet really hasn't changed much. It's just more frequent meals, because she can't eat as much volume in a sitting, so it's more frequent. It's like a lot of snacks and stuff. And a lot of people have asked me, not a lot, maybe 3 or 4 people have asked me about me gaining weight. And my thoughts are, I think that there's this strange thing in our culture where we live so much of our life where we are just like beating back the horde in our mind that wants us to just indulge on shit food all day and not move. And whenever I'm like that, and it comes and goes, like every 18 months, I gain 10 or 15 pounds, and then I'm like, oh, what the hell happened? And then I lose it, and I get back into a comfortable body composition for me. And the urge that I had when I found out that we were going to have a kid, and maybe it's the paranoid part of my brain, but it wasn't, all right, let's chill and, have some snackies and, watch some good series on Netflix, watch our shows. It was, okay, I need to make more money and I need to do jiu-jitsu. Which I haven't done the jiu-jitsu part. Probably because it's expensive, and then also it's super intimidating, man. Like I'm intimidated by starting to do jiu-jitsu. Let me have a sip of this ice water. But I've been lifting a lot more, and I think that's because I think there are things in our culture that we don't recognize necessarily, which is that the reason that a majority of violent crimes are perpetrated by men is because men, on average, right? There's exceptions to all these rules. I know very strong women. I know very, weak men. But on average, the people who are aggressors and the defenders are men. And I think that there's an evolutionary advantage to that. I think that, the idea of what I see in my relationship with Katie is that we both have access to the natural gifts that nature has given us. And for Katie, her natural gift it's the same thing that allows her to, that every time we go to Home Depot, she's not looking at the things that we need for the house renovation. She's looking for dogs. She's looking for, because you go to Home Depot, there's always a little pup somewhere. And in fact, they train dogs there. I see people all the time walking through Home Depot, and they have service animals that they're training. And so that's what she's doing. And I think that's the sort of character traits that are going to make her a really good primary school teacher and are going to make her a really gifted mom. And I think that the traits that I have that manifest in me is, okay, we got to get all this stuff organized. We got to put together sort of contingencies for this and that. We need to be bringing in another revenue stream. And if something violent happens in our life, like I'm the one who will handle that situation. And so, a lot of guys, when their partners get pregnant, they put on a couple pounds. And for me, the idea was, I'm fine with putting on some weight, but I want to be strong. Like I want to be stronger. And so I think that's what I want for my family is I want to be, I want to be strong in all the ways I can be strong. I've been, I think for the last decade or so, I've been, I work hard. I work long days. I always have different things that I'm doing. I always have little projects, and that's the thing that I've always been good at. I've always placed an emphasis on my physical well-being. And sometimes I've wanted to get strong for the sake of vanity. Like I want to look good. And I think I did a podcast like a year ago probably, that was, I think it was titled like, I want to get jacked, which is true. Like, and that was before we even really like had the conversation of like, we're going to have a kid and let's get that ball rolling. I think I have always wanted to just be big and strong, but now it's like there's this part of my brain where, Katie wants to make sure that she has this like nesting instinct that's happening, right? And she's been making sure that I'm getting things done with the nursery, finishing that before I move on to another project. And so that's an instinct that she has. An instinct that I have is I need to be able to like defend my family and provide for my family. And I don't think that, again, don't take any of this out of context, like the world we live in, where it's like, I'm not talking about everybody's experience that they're supposed to have, whether it's, traditional style gender roles or whether it's a flipped or a co-responsibility for different, traditional roles. Like, I don't care how you live your life. I'm just noticing what's popping up naturally in my biology and psychology and what's popping up in my wife's. And I think it's cool. Like, I think that there's a book I read by a married couple. They're evolutionary biologists. And it's called Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century. And they talk about this idea called the Omega Principle. And so let's see if I can explain this. So you have heritable traits, right? My hair color, skin color, height, these things are my predispositions for diabetes, obesity, all these different things, heart disease, all that those are heritable traits, right? And those go through our genome, right? My daughter's not going to come out blonde because my wife and I both have dark hair, right? At least that's highly improbable. Actually, I think it's impossible because there's nobody in her family that has blonde hair, and I think blonde hair is a recessive trait. And so I don't know. Throw a comment somewhere and let me know. Oh, you know what? Before I started the podcast, I said to myself today, Aaron, you need to remind the people in the first 5 minutes to like and subscribe. Didn't do it. 35 minutes into the podcast, didn't do it. I don't know. Like and subscribe. Trying to build something here, man. Trying to build revenue streams for my daughter. God. And the Omega Principle is an idea of cultural traits that are heritable. And if your genotype manifests in a phenotype that is an adaptive trait, it will carry on through the lineage biologically. So if being 6 foot tall is an adaptive trait that allows for the animal to procreate and live a full life, then that is an adaptive trait, right? And so when you sort of take this from I took a nap today. You know what happens when I take naps? My brain gets foggy, and the words don't come clearly. Forgive me. Worst podcaster ever. If something is an adaptive trait for an individual, it will likely carry on to the next generation and down the lineage. If a cultural trait is adaptive, then it will likely carry on for that culture. So, for example, being in community and singing, there is research to say that singing, this isn't from that book, this is from something else I read, but there's research that says that singing for, I don't know, whatever the number, these are rough numbers, but singing for 30 minutes can increase your serotonin production by 20%, whatever that number is. But it's a substantial increase for an extended period of time, whether it's 15 minutes or 45 minutes, I don't know. But singing in a group can increase your serotonin levels. Serotonin is important for all sorts of healthy things that happen in your state of being and state of wellness, but then also with bonding to others. So that trait is part of the Omega principle, which is this is a thing that cultures have done throughout time. And that means it's adaptive, right? It should carry through the lineage. And so that's like where this push and pull of like conserving our past and the traditions that we have may be serving us, and, you know, reconfiguring how those things go to change them if they aren't serving us, right? So tribalism is obviously part of the Omega principle that we inherit from culture and biology that doesn't work, right? Especially in a world that is communicating as freely as we are and has so many more tribes that you could be a part of. And so tribalism is one of those things that probably we should shed that came from the past. But there is an idea that like the natural inherent traits of the genders, right? Again, just looking at this at a binary level, right? There's different spaces that you could work in this. But just from the perspective that I have, with me and my wife, she has these natural capacities that I don't have. And I have natural capacities that she doesn't have. And they correlate with our sex and gender. And so I think that if you find yourself in a situation similar to mine, like we should be building these natural attributes to the extent that we can, because it'll serve the next generation. So I think that makes sense. I don't know. Do I want to keep talking about this? I'll tell you what I'm reading right now. I want to do like a book club kind of thing. Like not book club, like talk to you guys about, I don't want to talk, I don't know. I don't want to have conversations with people about books. I just kind of want to ramble about books. But I'm seeing the reason that I thought about this, because I'm seeing on my desk right here the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, which is right here if you're on YouTube. And this book kept coming into my world, my online world. People were suggesting it, you know, podcasters and YouTubers and all this, and I didn't want to buy it. Like I just didn't. I spend the $15 on it, and I was like, whatever. Like it's what's he gonna say? He's gonna say you should be working, and I just finally just bought the book for $15, and there's nothing that's genuinely groundbreaking in this book. He's not saying anything that's like new. That we haven't heard already. In fact, I think a lot of people have been reworking these ideas in the popular culture. But what I'm taking away from it is that you do genuinely need to just set time aside to work and not let yourself get distracted. So I think I'm going to do a breakdown of that book for my first like book club kind of thing. It's been I've been like enacting some of these principles that he has in here, which again are not like, there's nothing, he's not doing anything crazy in this book, but he's just saying like, look, you've got a capacity for deep focus that our culture has created obstacles to access. You know, like I'll be in my office and like, you know, paying bills or doing administrative work, and I'm listening to a podcast, and it's like it's going to take you longer to do it. You're going to be sloppy, and you're not even listening to the podcast. You just want to have some sort of distraction in your ear because you think this is boring. But if you just commit to embracing boredom and getting the job done, it gets done faster, more effectively, and then you can just move on to the next thing. And I've been sort of training myself up. I have a Pomodoro timer on my phone. If you don't know what Pomodoro is, like, Google it. It's just a practice of like set time, break, set time, break, set time, break. And so I've been setting up these hour-long blocks. Today's Wednesday. I've only done it for the last 3 days. And it's insane how much work I can get done in an hour if I don't let myself get distracted. Like, I don't even get up to go to the bathroom. Like, I'm just here. I put in some binaural beats, which are just like different frequencies of like whoa in one ear and then the other. Helps me focus. I set this timer, and then I just work for an hour. And what I'm working on right now is I'm working on like doing a lot of writing, because I'm trying to build something right now that requires a great deal of writing. And for this thing, I'm looking at my corkboard right here. I have 9 sections that I parsed out and outlined, and I finished one of the sections in an hour. And it was like, I don't know, it's just a rough draft of it, but it was, you know, a handful of pages, several thousand words. I just didn't let myself get distracted. I stayed on the note card, used my quotes, all this stuff. A lot of the techniques I've been pulling in over the last 5 years from different things I've been listening to, and actually started doing it because I read this book that says, stop distracting yourself. And then, so I think one key takeaway from this book that I've taken is, if you're consistently craving to escape boredom, you'll find ways to do that with, you know, Instagram, YouTube, TV, whatever, scrolling through the internet. But what that does is it alleviates your boredom for the moment. But when you sit down to actually focus, you don't have the gear ready to go because you've just trained yourself to run away from boredom every time it happens. And so once you get past boredom, there is a space of clarity that's available. And that's what I'm practicing right now. And I think this comes back to being a dad. I don't want for the work and the projects that I do to, one, I don't want them to stop. And who knows how this all shakes out when you have a kid, right? I don't know. I'm doing this live. We're going to do it live. But I don't want to stop like woodworking and podcasting, doing yoga, teaching yoga, writing. I don't want these things to stop. So if I'm going to be able to continue to pursue things that I find meaningful, I have to be organized and use my time effectively. And so if I commit myself to working and writing for an hour, it's got to be that hour. And what that means is I got to get every drop out of that hour that I can get. Because, 6 months ago, in most of my professional life, I would sit down to write or lesson plan or do whatever it is that I'm going to do. And, I'd fart around for 30 minutes and then start and then get distracted and do something else. And then be like, oh, I should do this, and then do something else. And like nothing gets done, even though I think I'm fairly productive. Like I'm probably in the 70th percentile of productivity. But the people that are in the 80th, 90th percentile of productivity, it's like, I got an hour. I'm getting it done. And I think I want my kids to see me building things without fear of failure. And I want them to see that, yeah, like Dad's got a job, but he's also got this project, and that, that makes money, and it also, it helps people out, and he's got this thing that he does because he wants to get better at that, and he knows how to, wire electricity in the house during renovations, and, my dad built those cabinets, and I want my kids to know that about me, not because, I think maybe because of an ego thing, like maybe I want to be like, I want to be a good dad. It's like, I want my kids to like look and say like, I want my kids to say the kind of things that are like, that's how dad is, but not in the way of like, well, that's how dad is. He's kind of an asshole. But I want my kids to know that I work hard. And I think that's partly ego. But I think the better part of my desire for my kids to know that I work hard and I'm productive, more importantly, because hard work's kind of bullshit unless there's something that comes from it. I want them to know that that is how you find a fulfilled life, is by building and creating and connecting with people and helping people. And that's what I try to do in my professional life and in my personal life. So I want that to happen. I want to be able to do those things. And so Deep Work, this book, has been a reminder, which, I'm kind of thick, I'm kind of daft. So, I need these reminders every 6 to 12 months of like, no, dude, just do it. Just, you got, and focus on one thing at a time instead of 20 things at a time. I heard a quote once that says people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10. And I think that's true. And the original quote might have been, people overestimate what they do in a day, but underestimate what they could do in a year. But, whatever time horizon you're working with, you can get a lot done if you let yourself focus. And I want to get things done at the same time of being a good dad. And I think, and being a good husband, These are the things I'm thinking about. I hope it was interesting to you. I think I'm going to wrap this one because it's 5 o'clock. I teach yoga at 6, and my basement doesn't have air conditioning. So I've been down here sweating like a pig. So the music's going to start any second now. And it'll be my outro music. And this is just me filling air. So fill, Aaron. Fill. There it is. Oh, man. It feels good to be back on this. Yeah, man. So, hit me up. Hit me up online. Give me a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. It makes a huge difference, man. Like, each time I get a review or a comment on YouTube or a sub, hit me with them subs, baby. It starts to spread more, and I want to be a voice in the world for good. All right, y'all. The music stopped. Damn it. All right, we're ending it without music, so I'm not going to copy and paste the thing. Maybe I should take this more seriously, but I think I got to get into practice of it to take it more seriously. Okay, Aaron, stop the podcast now. Peace.